Hello everybody and welcome to this latest episode of the DotA Game Clinic presented by the Noob Stream. The Game Clinic is a show where I'll work with a player and we'll analyze a replay and look to see what we can learn and improve from that. So today's episode will feature Dream Bendy playing the Faceless Void. Welcome Bendy.
Hello.
So if you'd like to, well, let's get this thing started. Get ready to press the play button in 3, 2, 1... Alright, so can you give us a brief introduction of your Dota background? How long have you played and all that?
I just played since, I think, early the few months this year, and I've got 300 hours, got a 2k MMR. It's my calibrating MMR. So not that long, but just started. Never played a MOBA before.
Okay, so you've decided to pick the Faceless Void here, and this is a ranked game, I believe?
Yes, ranked.
Okay, so the Faceless Void is a hero that is obviously quite strong, has been for a number of patches. The main skill that people, fear and dread on him rightfully is, of course, Chronosphere, which casts a sphere that stops time inside it for everybody but him, which means that nothing can move and they can't cast their spells. It used to disable some passives too, but that's no longer the case. Is this a hero that you play frequently, Ben?
Yeah, it's one of my most played. Probably my favourite at the moment.
I see. He is pretty strong, and a lot of people have used him to increase their MMR because he's a strong hero. So we'll take a look at what happens up here. It looks like you're going to be laning the Ancient Apparition as your support. So what are you thinking in terms of the other heroes, or what lane you're expecting to face, or item choice and stuff?
Well, I don't really think about what I'm going to lane against when I get into a game. I was just thinking of trying to hard carry Void, but I use a guide, really, to help me what to pick.
Given their team, they have multiple heroes that could be played as offlaners or carries. So you did end up facing the Magnus this game, although you could have gotten a tougher hero like the Weaver or someone else. But since it is a solo Magnus, he really shouldn't be able to stop you from farming by himself because he counts on his shockwave spam, and your guy's doing a pretty good job of harassing him. So you do have a Quelling Blade early to help you last hit, it looks like.
Yeah.
So aside from, well, this I'm pointing out because it's just a really basic mechanical thing, but as you play more, put more hours into it, your micro's going to improve and you're going to get more last hits. It looks like this AA is competing with you for last hits. Is that what happened?
For a bit of it, he did. I think he did stop.
Okay. So communication is an issue that's tough at these games because a lot of times people aren't responsive or they won't listen to your idea of what should be happening. But the AA should be focused on harassing, which he did some of, and maybe pulling creeps to deny experience from the offlaner, since you don't really need that much help. You're not in danger of being killed by the Magnus. One other thing I want to point out, just a quick thing about the lane control and stuff. So if you focus on denying like a little bit harder early on in the lane, especially because you have a Quelling Blade, then you can help control the creep equilibrium and keep the wave pushed up closer to your tower. And of course what that means, if you're able to do that, is that he's in more danger of being killed and he has to be careful and he has a longer retreat back. Versus if you're at his tower, which the creeps are kind of close to, he gets experience without really being afraid of you being able to kill him. So just keep that in mind when you're playing, like where the creep wave is important, and it can change how you lane. Like right here, you have a creep wave coming after a pull. So what's going to happen is you see how like the creep wave comes in range of the tower, so the tower starts killing it and pushing it back.
Yeah.
So what you might want to do in a situation like that is you can actually run to the left of the lane and tank the creeps yourself for a little bit, since you do have regen that you haven't really had to use. So you can tank the creeps a little bit, and then that keeps the tower from killing them because the tower does a ton of damage, and that'll help you maintain creep equilibrium.
Okay.
So for early item progression, what are you thinking this game? Like, what are you going to make as your first items?
It was Battle Fury I went for as my first one to get a bit of health regen. I don't know why, but just didn't really need it.
I see. Do you commonly get Battle Fury?
With Void, yeah. It's normally my first item. Well, I start building that and then get boots.
I see. So Battle Fury used to be a much more common item on Void. I think like it's a pretty good item in general for a number of reasons. It gives you regen, as you mentioned. It gives you mana when Void has a low mana pool, so he kind of has some mana problems. And it allows you to basically stay out on the map and farm faster. So those are all pretty good advantages for getting Battle Fury. But I think recently people have begun to go with items like Mask of Madness instead. Or if you're going to get a farming item, you might get something like Maelstrom instead, or Midas. So there are a couple.
I think I did get a Midas in the end.
Did you get Midas?
I waited to see how my farm went.
I see.
Yeah, I think that's what happened.
The Midas has obvious advantages. It gives you gold and it increases your experience, which is fairly important on the Void because you want him to get his skill points as soon as possible, and you also want to level up the Chronosphere so that the cooldown goes down. It goes down from 130 seconds down to 110 and down to 90. The Maelstrom is also pretty good because it gives you like a proc that is based off your attack speed, and so it not only helps you farm, but when you're in Chronosphere, hitting a defenseless target, it's great for like adding extra damage. Plus, attack speed on Void in general is good because it gives you more procs of your time lock and bash. So Battle Fury isn't as common of an item. I don't think it's a bad choice. I think for the most part I would choose Battle Fury if it's a game where you're up against multiple melee heroes, that the cleave is going to come in handy. In this case, only 2 of the heroes are melee, so I'm not sure how much the Battle Fury would be great for that.
Yeah, okay. Makes sense.
So I do have a question about your skill build here. So you put 2 points in Time Walk early. Is this your usual skill build, or?
It depends how aggressive we're being. Cause sometimes in these games you get toast support in your lane, so then I'd get the backtrack. Depends how much I get harassed, really.
Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much what I expected and have wanted to hear, which is that item skill builds are not always static. You kind of need to adjust to your situation. Here you can afford to get Time Walk because you're not really being harassed as much. You can even afford to level up Bash if you want because the backtrack isn't that important. So the Time Walk gives you more range and allows you to slow him more if you have a chance to kill him. So yeah, I think that's the right skill choice here. And it does look like you haven't bought anything, so you're saving up for Midas.
Yeah.
Just like what you did here, which is deliver the Midas recipe directly to yourself first as soon as you can afford it. Some players will get the gloves or they won't do that immediately, and that just ends up slowing you down because when you buy the gloves, obviously you can go to the side shop to do it, and that's just more efficient with your time. So I like that you did that. So you're approaching Chronosphere here. You've almost got level 6. So what is your philosophy when it comes to using Chronosphere for the most part, as I see your Luna's delivering a gank for you?
Normally I don't use it very often early game. Try to farm it up so I have more damage and attack speed. I then go in only when I'm needed to. But late game I'll start using it more probably.
Okay, so we will talk about this more situationally as the situations come up, but there are multiple ways of doing this. I think one of the most efficient ways to play the Void early on is if you're getting Chrono early and you're against someone in lane, like one person for example, and you have support, or if you have a chance to get a pick off, then I think you should use it, generally speaking, liberally early game, because the cooldown's long. You don't want to just entirely not use it, and it helps you accelerate your farming experience by picking off free kills. Generally as a carry, you don't want to risk yourself in too many situations, as you mentioned. Like, you'd rather be farming than risking yourself in these potentially bad fights. But as we'll see this game, maybe you probably have opportunities to use your Chronosphere to pick up kills and accelerate your farm. But later on, it becomes more of a fine line between when you use it and when it needs to be saved and what enemy spells can counter it and stuff.
Okay.
Radiant's middle tower is under attack.
Looks like the Magnus went bottom. Is that? That's good. So that gives you some free reign over the lane, and you might be able to take the tower soon. It looks like. So usually when you communicate with your teammates, or you're looking around at what's happening on the map, what were you thinking this game, or What's your usual pattern of communication with your teammates?
I normally speak down the mic if people are replying. If not, type in chat. But I normally just tell them what to do. But the thing is, I don't know, my map control isn't that good, so I wouldn't really know what's going on around the map. Which is probably what I need to improve on quite a bit.
I see. Yeah, so you could probably just get in the habit of looking around on the minimap, and then sometimes you get toxic teammates. I'm sure we've all been there, and it becomes much harder to...
Yeah, I think they got
control
quite
yourself.
toxic at the end at me.
I see. It becomes harder to maintain like positive, useful communication. So it looks like you're going Midas into Battle Fury, right?
Yeah, I think that's what happened.
So in this game, or as you get better, you're also going to have to account for enemy heroes and stuff when you take certain builds. So as I mentioned, the Battle Fury doesn't give you too much utility as in terms of cleave. Also, if you go Midas and Battle Fury, as we see here, it's like a pretty tough spot, but you're going to be able to get out of it with the time walk. What ends up happening is I would consider items like Midas and Battle Fury to be quote-unquote greed items, or items that accelerate your farm. So if you get more than one of them, you could very quickly run into a situation where the other team is pressuring you. Also, because people are afraid of and hate Faceless Void in pub games, they put more attention on you, generally speaking. So if you get multiple greed items, and let's say the rest of your team has heroes that need farm, it becomes tougher and tougher for you to be able to survive that pressure and actually use your greed items. So in this game, if you chose Midas or Battle Fury, I think either choice is okay, but I probably wouldn't have gotten both, just because you're probably going to face a bit more early pressure, and it's going to be harder for you to deal with it.
Okay. So what do you get instead of Battle Fury then?
I'd probably just get items that allow me to fight a little bit early and make use of that first Chronosphere. Because as you saw there, you had the Chronosphere, right? But you didn't have enough damage to like kill anybody, especially because Viper's tanky, and like the AA ult was helping you too. So I'd probably get a Treads, and the items that's really popular in Void, as I mentioned earlier, is Mask of Madness, because when you use the activatable on it, it gives you a ton up here. Gives you 100% increased attack speed and 30% increased move speed for 12 seconds. So coupled with the fact that you have time lock, which gives you more damage from proccing, like being able to use Mask of Madness in a Chronosphere virtually guarantees you a kill on any hero that's like under 1000 HP, especially if you have an AA ult helping you out as well. So it just gives you like huge kill potential for like anybody that comes near you. They basically have to be afraid or you'll kill them. I assume that you mentioned also some of the regeneration from the Ring of Health is helpful to you, but with the lifesteal, the bit of lifesteal from the Mask of Madness, and of course the Mask of Death before that, you also get some lifesteal that helps you in lane because you deal a decent amount of damage. So they're both sources of heal, but one of them has much more damage potential and doesn't take as long to pay off. Like Mask of Madness is going to be useful all game long, basically.
Okay. I normally get the Battle Fury just to increase my farm. Yeah, and they're normally very weak early games, so that makes sense.
Yeah, and of course it depends on the situation too, because some games you get heroes who are very self-sufficient and like they can fight no problem without you, or the other team's greedier than you are, so in that case they can't punish you. But in this game you're dealing with very aggressive heroes with lots of early fighting potential. I mean, you have Viper, who's just a beast throughout the whole game. You have Bane, who's very strong early. You have Weaver, who's very strong and hard to kill early. You have Wraith King, who's like, like their entire team is pretty well equipped to fight from early through mid-game. They don't have any super greedy heroes that can't do anything to you. So in this case, having that extra bit of greed may hurt you a bit more. Or be more troublesome, depending on how much pressure they apply.
Okay.
Of course, that will vary depending on skill level too. I think when you play in higher level games, people are going to be more keen on pressuring you, and in these games you can sometimes get away with it. But that brings up another great issue or kind of philosophical conundrum with Dota, right? Like, do you play to try to beat people in the immediate games, or do you play for some kind of long term? And it's hard to make that decision when you're playing. Like, you can't play anybody except the people you're up against, so it's kind of hard to learn that perspective sometimes.
Our fates were woven from the first.
Yeah, start trying to jungle here.
You could probably, just a small point, have asked for a heal from your Warlock, and that might have topped you off or something. But yeah, I like what you're doing right now, which is just trying to be efficient and get some farm somewhere, instead of waiting for something to develop in the lane. It's a good idea to just always be active. Here, you might have been able to... Looks like you're waiting for the Midas. Yeah, you might be able to kill this creep camp fast enough to get a second spawn out of it, which is good. So I see that your efficiency is pretty good. You clearly have played or have some inkling of how to play farming heroes, because you are making a good decision, a good trade-off of instead of waiting for the fights to go and get some gold somewhere. So I like that. That's something to build on. Efficiency is like a huge part of the game. You get basically better players are more efficient. They get more experience and gold out of the map, out of any given situation. So I see that you're on that path, and that's good.
A golden thread.
Yeah. Don't have much damage early on game, so can't really go through them very quickly. It would have helped the Master Madness, to be fair.
Yeah, you also don't have like the boots or treads, so you move like kind of slow. And right now you do have enough mana for your combo, but it's still hard for you to get in range, and like you only have one set of combo, so you can't really miss it. Looks like you guys have this fight under pretty good control.
Double damage.
Dire's middle tower is under attack.
Alright, so your team has responded pretty well, I think, to these early situations. They've sent people up to fight, and they've gotten a number of return kills. So I would say that you have a fair amount of space, like a pretty good amount of space to make things happen, and you're well on your way to your greed items. So we'll see how this mid game goes in shaping the rest of the game.
Are fireproof.
Okay.
You're really close to your battle fury now. You're one item away. So this is a really good start. You haven't really been punished at all for your greed, except for getting pushed out of lane a little bit, and you've almost got your items. So this is a pretty ideal start for you, I would say.
Yep. If you weren't able though to get the farm, what would you have to do to make the space?
I mean, I think the less farm you're guaranteed to get, or the less farm you're allowed to have, the more combat items you have to go, and the more aggressively you have to use your chronospheres to hunt for kills, and even the balance. Like this game, it seems okay that you're not using chrono to get kills, because you have the space already, and you would have to be taking risks to go get them, and obviously you don't really have the combat items. But if you don't have much space, then you kind of just have to go make things happen and help your team. So yeah, it really depends on game situation, and you've got a really good start here. And I would say that for the most part, if you're put in a position like this, you would be expected to carry the game, because you've gotten a lot of space. So we'll see how this game unfolds. And like, at the same time, I might see why your teammates would get frustrated, but also like there's a lot of, you know, mistakes coming from them and stuff too. So, well, again, we'll see. It'll be interesting to see how this mid game shapes up.
I think it was the late game that everyone seemed to fall out.
I see.
Sapphire. Killing spree.
So here's the other thing. In terms of your lineup, your team has pretty good synergy with you as the Void. You have AA, obviously, who has all the time in the world to hit his ultimate when you ult people. You have Warlock and Luna, both of whom do their damage from range, and here you are TPing in. So your team is pretty good in terms of synergy with you, and obviously like the Centaur can follow things up, although the Centaur's build is pretty bad. So there you used a Chronosphere. Any thoughts on what you were thinking there, or what you saw there?
Thought I could do a bit more damage. Just came in to try and get the kill on Viper. Didn't work out there.
So the Viper, even though he didn't even max his corrosive skin, is an incredibly tanky hero. So usually you want to kill him. I would say you probably need a bit more help. especially because you don't have a whole lot of attack speed. So you don't get to hit him much, and your chances of getting time lock are lower. But I do like that you went there because you did save the tower. So it was a heads-up move to go there and try to punish that aggression. But you didn't really have the items to do it. So I think it was good awareness that you saw that. But again, the items kind of determine your playstyle a bit because you don't have that much burst at this point.
Yeah, I normally play it quite late game. Try to go for the kills.
And that's a pretty safe way to play him, usually. As long as you're allowed to do it, which you have the opening to. So you're farming at a pretty good pace. You've got 104 last hits at about 19 minutes, so that's pretty good, and you haven't really been touched. What other heroes do you commonly play?
I used to play Ricky loads when I started, but gone off him recently.
Do you not like the patch changes to Ricky?
Oh no, I played him way before. When I first started playing, I found him just easy to go around invisible getting kills.
Yeah.
Got me into the game really. I quite like Templar Assassin, that's one of my favourites if I play mid. And Bristleback, I quite like off lane.
I see. So you like these melee heroes that kind of get up in people's faces and right click them to death and stuff. That seems to be your playstyle.
Yeah, I quite like Meepo as well if I get sort of team play around me.
Awesome. I'm a fan of melee carries and stuff too. Definitely also play Void a lot. Well, just a few minor things here. You could potentially stack the big creep camps every time you're near them. That might be more efficient for farming because you clear them very quickly with Battle Fury, and like obviously it gives you more gold from the big camps. So just one thing you might want to look out for: just stacking the camps as often as you can, so you can farm them and get more gold. You also are spending a lot of time farming in the neutrals. That can be good if you don't have any other choice. Obviously, it's better than nothing, but I think you should be more active in looking for places to TP and take lane farm, because lane farm provides a lot more gold.
Oh, okay. Didn't really think about that. Just always thought the forest was safer.
Yeah, in this game it
Jungle.
is pretty safe, but also if you consider that the tower situation, they've lost all of their tier 1 towers and you still have yours, which means that it's hard for them to TP and respond to where you are and kill you. So since your team also has wards out, you can just use that information to say, well, they're not down there, so you can't threaten me. For example, bottom lane is safe for you to farm because you can have a ward there and you see that there's no one there. And also you can pressure their tower if you farm it, which forces rotations. Also, because you have a ward in the bottom jungle and see that they're not there, you can just spend your time farming their jungle instead of yours when you're not farming the creep wave, which takes gold away from them in the long run.
Okay.
So that's just one area, I think. So here... Right, so that, walk me through that right there.
Well, I saw Weaver there, and I knew my ult got rid of the invisibility, so I used the ult but missed it.
Okay, so that was probably a mechanical thing. I mean, you know, all of us get better over time with that sort of stuff. You probably need to, knowing that Weaver has an escape, you probably need to ult him immediately if you want to kill him.
Yeah.
And you swapped your treads here. Did you do that on purpose for that engagement, or?
I think I normally keep it on intelligence so I can get my, what's it called? Time walk mana for that, so I can get around the jungle camps quicker.
Okay, so one thing that you could do, if you're gonna fight, obviously you probably want to put the treads onto agility or strength for the engagement itself. What better players will do is use their treads to swap around and give themselves more stats. For example, if you're on strength treads, then you have less of an intelligence pool, but that also means that each point of mana that you regenerate is more efficient. So when you switch it back to int, you're going to end up ultimately having more mana than if you had left it on int treads the whole time and made it regenerate out of a bigger pool. So that's just some like small micromanagement stuff that you can do. I noticed you picked up a Gloves of Haste. Are you going into Maelstrom now, or what?
Yeah, Maelstrom's what I was going for.
Okay, so generally for Faceless Void, I think about 20 minutes, 25 minutes into the game is when I think he starts needing, well, one, to contribute in more of these fights and be looking for team fights more often, but two, some kind of, as a result of that, some kind of like defensive item or maybe magic immunity, probably like a BKB. So, I mean, that stops so many things on their team from either stunning you or dealing damage to you, although they have things that go through it. As we see here, it looks like you're,
I killed that with magic.
Yeah, that was a tough fight for you guys. You had some vision, so you did see the Wraith King, but I think you needed to disengage when the other enemies got there. Or you could have tried to chrono everyone else instead of the Wraith King. Bane can really mess up your day, as he did there if he's outside of the chronosphere. So yeah, did you know that the Wraith King's ult was down when you went on him, or?
Oh no, I wasn't really watching the map or the game really.
I see. So that's something that you'll improve on as you play more.
Yeah.
The Wraith King is generally not a great target for your solo chronospheres because he's kind of tanky, and if he has his ult up, it's kind of like a waste of your chrono.
Yeah.
Also, we'll talk about this more, but yeah, try to account for who's around and like who's rotating and what is up in terms of spells and what can be used against you. And yeah, I wouldn't advise the Maelstrom pickup because it's yet another kind of greed item on top of the 2 ones that you already have. So you're going to end up with a good amount of attack speed, but not anything that helps your survivability, which as you can see is becoming kind of important in these team fights. And it's all just more gold that you may have to replace later, or you can find more items that are more efficient in the slots that you're using for pure damage instead of mostly for gold gain.
Yeah. I think the problem I have though is I just look at the guides and just forget to look at the other team and count on them with items.
I see. Well, having the Maelstrom is useful. Like I said, I probably would have gone for that immediately. It is useful against any kind of attack heroes, with which they have at least 3. So it's a good thing that you did that, as we see another... Oh, this is a very timely time walk out of there. I barely dodged that Viper ultimate, which might have been deadly. So, as the game goes on, when and how you use Chronosphere becomes a bigger issue, because what will happen sometimes, as you saw with that Wraith King engagement, is if you chrono people to initiate a fight, and it's not like their whole team or a good chunk of their heroes that you could just kill immediately with your allied help, what's going to happen is they're going to sit outside of it and then wait to counter you and then punish you for it. You see here, looks like you're going to get the Viper kill. So like if you cast a Chronosphere and the Bane is outside of it, he can put you to sleep, he can put the target to sleep. If the Viper's outside of it, he can slow you with his poison. If the Wraith King's inside of it, he'll just come back to life after the Chrono. So basically, Chronosphere becomes like a tougher resource to use because people on the other team are going to know and they're going to play around it. So they're going to try to spread out and like not let you get them all. So I think usually the best way to do that, to get around that, is to actually allow your teammates to start fights, and then I don't know if bait them is the right term, but you kind of want to use them to draw the enemies together so you can get a massive Chronosphere with a number of enemies.
Okay.
Just we'll be watching how the fights go this game, but just that sometimes chronoing first it just shows your hand, you know, and it removes the threat of Chronosphere, and they know exactly how they can deal with that. You don't even have a chrono up, but it was enough to scare the Weaver away briefly, I think. So that was good, and looks like you're gonna pick up another kill here. And you guys don't have vision, but